Welcome, Fright Night Vault listeners. Some homes feel alive because of the people who move through them. Others feel alive before anyone crosses the threshold, like they've just been waiting. The case I'm about to share with you started with a family who thought they were buying peace and quiet, a place to build routines and raise their 2 kids. Instead, they walked into a house that had already chosen them long before they signed the papers. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again. Tonight's audio horror, The House That Wouldn't Stay Still, starts now. They moved in at the end of summer, when heat still sat on the pavement and the evenings held that strange mix of fatigue and optimism. New school year coming, new commute, new neighborhood. On paper, it was an upgrade in every way. 3 bedrooms, a small yard, a quiet street with trees that arched over the road like a tunnel. The kind of place that looks harmless in daylight and too quiet at night. They were an ordinary family. 2 parents juggling schedules, an older child just starting to care about privacy, and a younger one still leaving toys scattered in every room. They weren't looking for anything strange. They didn't chase ghost stories. They didn't visit haunted places. They just wanted somewhere that felt stable. The house didn't feel haunted at first. It felt unsettled. That's how the mother described it when she wrote to me. She said, even on the first walkthrough, before they owned it, she had the sense that the rooms were waiting to be filled, but not in a warm way. More like a stage waiting for actors. The walls felt too attentive. The hall seemed too narrow when she walked it alone. She ignored that feeling. A lot of people do. You ever walk into a room that looks fine, smells fine, sounds fine, but your body tells you to step back anyway? Most of us override that instinct. She did too. The kids chose their rooms without drama. The older one took the room at the back of the house, overlooking the yard. The younger ended up in the smaller room near the hallway, closer to the bathroom. The parents took the front bedroom, with a window facing the street and a view of the big maple tree out front. It felt logical, practical. No one argued, no one cried. The house let them settle. For the first week, life was just boxes and rearranging. The father focused on getting furniture assembled, fixing minor things, learning which light switches controlled which fixtures. The mother learned the sound of the fridge cycling, the way the plumbing groaned once when someone flushed in the middle of the night. Every house has its own language, and they were still learning this one. She remembered the first odd moment clearly because it was so small. It happened on the 3rd night. She was standing in the hallway with an armful of folded clothes halfway between the kids' rooms when she heard a tap by her left ear. Not loud. Just a quick, sharp, knuckle-on-wood kind of sound. She turned her head, expecting to see something hanging loosely on the wall. There was nothing there, just smooth paint and a faint reflection of the nightlight from the bathroom. She told herself it was the building settling, drywall flexing, old lumber shifting as temperatures dropped. That's the script we all reach for. It makes us feel like we understand things. She kept walking, put the clothes away, and forgot about it. For that night. The next day, the family focused on normal problems. The Wi-Fi dropped in and out. The kids argued over which cereal belonged to who. The father tried to mow the patchy backyard and found a few old nails scattered near the fence line. He picked them up, pocketed them, and never mentioned it to anyone. Little things. Nothing that would suggest what the house really was. That evening, after dinner, it happened again. This time, the older child heard it. They were brushing their teeth in the bathroom when they called out to their mother, asking why someone had knocked on the wall behind the mirror. The mother stepped into the doorway and listened. The house was quiet. She checked the other side of the wall, the small linen closet. Nothing inside was loose, no pipes directly behind that spot. Just insulation and wood. She told the child it was the house settling, The same explanation she'd given herself. The same words, almost the same tone. But she admitted later that she didn't believe what she was saying anymore. She just wanted her child to believe it. You notice how quickly people will choose the comfortable lie over the unsettling truth, especially in a new home when everything depends on the idea that this place is safe. If you admit it isn't, you don't just lose a structure. You lose the life you've already started building inside it. The first week passed like that. Little noises, little shifts, a soft creak here, an unexplained knock there. The father dismissed most of it as quirks of an older build. He'd lived in worse places. Thin walls, loose floorboards, rattling vents. This didn't feel different enough to worry him. Not yet. It was the younger child who noticed the pattern. They told their mother that the wall sound only happened when someone walked down the hallway alone, not when they went as a group, not when both parents passed by, only when one person walked it by themselves. The mother laughed it off at first, but that detail lodged somewhere deep in her mind and stayed there. She started paying attention. On the nights when she walked the hall alone to check on the kids, it was there, soft, delayed, like an echo of her movement. A tap on the wall just after she passed a certain point. Always the same spot, always just behind her shoulder. You ever experience that split-second pause when you stop walking to listen, and the quiet suddenly feels thick, like you've interrupted something? That's what she described. She said the silence after those little knocks felt heavier than the sound itself, like something on the other side was holding still, waiting for her to move again. The first time anything went missing, she didn't even think to connect it. A set of keys. The father dropped them in the ceramic bowl by the front door like he always did. The next morning, they were gone. He checked his pockets, the kitchen counters, the car, the top of the washing machine. Nothing. They argued briefly, the kind of worn-out frustration that comes with routines breaking down. He ended up taking the spare set. They found the original keys 2 days later, resting neatly on the edge of the bathtub. No one admitted to moving them. No one had a reason to. It was odd, yes, but still small enough to excuse. Someone must have grabbed them absent-mindedly, set them down. Forgotten. Logical. Simple. This is how it always starts. Not with the impossible, but with the barely uncomfortable. The moments you can still fold into everyday life. The older child mentioned the hallway next. They said it felt too long at night. Not physically, just in the way it felt to walk down it. They told their mother that when they got up for water after midnight, the end of the corridor seemed farther away with each step, like they weren't getting closer to the kitchen as quickly as they should. Kids say strange things. You can write that off. But the mother had noticed something similar. Not distance exactly, just a sense that the hallway held more space at night than it did during the day. As if the walls loosened a little when the house was dark. The father stayed practical. He kept himself busy with weekend tasks, fixing a loose outlet cover, re-securing a stair rail, figuring out the noise in the HVAC system that made a low hum in the early hours. He wasn't the type to admit unease even if he felt it. He measured the world in things he could fix. But even he mentioned the sound once. After a late shift, he came home, dropped his shoes by the door, and padded through the hall toward the bedroom. Halfway down, he heard a tap at ankle level on the baseboard. Not a creak, not the usual wood pop, a distinct knuckle-like tap. He paused, waited, then tried stamping his foot to recreate it. Nothing. The house stayed quiet. He didn't tell anyone that night. Just went to bed later than usual and stayed awake staring at the ceiling for a long time, listening. The house from the outside looked unremarkable. Neutral paint, small porch, curtains closed at night. If you drove by, you wouldn't notice anything wrong. No broken windows, no strange lights, no overgrown yard. It was the kind of place you'd forget the second you turned the corner. That's the most unsettling part of this case to me. How ordinary it looked while all of this was starting. You ever think about how many houses on your own street could be like that? Quiet on the outside, wrong on the inside. You only see the front. You don't hear what the walls hear at 3 in the morning. By the second week, the family's routine had settled enough for the house to study it. The kids went to bed around the same time every night. The parents watched TV or scrolled through their phones until one of them gave in to exhaustion. The hallway lamp stayed on as a soft nightlight, casting a pale glow down the corridor and leaving the far end in a constant twilight. That's where the mother started seeing it. Not a full figure, not yet, just a feeling at first. She'd stand at her bedroom door, listening for the kids breathing, and she'd get the sense that something else was standing halfway down the hall, not moving, not announcing itself, just there. At this point, there were no flying objects, no slamming doors, nothing you could film and show as proof, just taps, small displacements, uneasy distance. But the important thing had already happened. The house had their attention, and something inside those walls had started to respond. The second week settled into a rhythm the family didn't choose, but the house seemed to enforce. That was when the small incidents, those tiny taps, those misplaced items, started forming patterns. Patterns always matter in cases like this. Entities reveal themselves not in chaos, but in repetition, in the way something happens again but slightly differently, as if testing the boundaries of what the family would accept before breaking through the rest. The older child began waking at the same time every night. Not midnight, not 3 a.m., an off hour, 2:13. The mother checked the clock more than once. Each time she found them sitting upright, eyes open, breathing steady but tense, staring at the wall beside their bed. When she asked what woke them, they said they didn't know. They just felt something tap the wall next to their ear. One tap, always one, never two, never louder. The mother tried brushing it off, but there was weight behind the child's voice. Children don't describe rhythm unless they're hearing it. She told them she'd stay close by if it happened again. She sat in the hall that next night, wrapped in a blanket, reading quietly on her phone. She listened for the tap, ready to catch the sound for herself. The house stayed silent, completely silent, not even the usual settling. She almost felt relieved. At 2:13, the child spoke softly through the crack in the door, asking if she'd heard it. She hadn't, but she believed them. She looked at the wall, felt the stillness coming off it. That was the beginning of her understanding. Paranormal activity doesn't always reveal itself to a room. Sometimes it chooses a single person. Sometimes it chooses the one who feels most vulnerable at that moment. For the younger child, the activity showed itself differently. Toys began to move around the room in small, almost playful ways. A plastic dinosaur that had been left on the shelf would end up on the floor. A puzzle piece placed face up on the dresser. A stuffed animal angled toward the doorway instead of the bed. Small changes. Not alarming, just strange. The kind of things a parent might assume the child moved, but the younger one insisted they didn't touch anything. The father didn't believe it yet. He kept grounding everything in logic. He tightened screws, tested hinges, re-leveled furniture, all the small fixes homeowners try when something isn't behaving the way it should. He found nothing loose, nothing shifting, and that bothered him more than he admitted. One night, he tried to catch the movement himself. He quietly arranged several toys in a neat line before bedtime. Then he took a picture on his phone. He didn't tell the kids, didn't mention it to his wife. It was a private test, a way to prove to himself that everything had a natural explanation. The next morning, the toys were no longer in a line. They formed a semicircle facing the center of the room, not scattered, not random, arranged. He checked his photo again. He checked the positions. He checked the door latch. Everything pointed to someone or something moving them deliberately. He deleted the photo instead of showing anyone. Deleting it made it easier to pretend nothing had happened. The hallway became the anchor for all the early disturbances. Almost every odd noise, every flicker of movement, every shift in air pressure originated from that narrow stretch of floorboards. The mother started avoiding it after dark, choosing instead to step lightly along the edge of the rooms, brushing her shoulder along the wall to stay oriented. The older child refused to walk it alone, even during the day. They claimed the air felt different there, thicker, like it resisted their breath. The father didn't feel that at first, but even he noticed the temperature drop one night when he walked through carrying a laundry basket. He said he stepped from warm air into something colder, not freezing, not sharp, just unnaturally cool for a house with closed windows and stable weather. He stopped mid-hallway and stood there, waiting for the air to warm again. It didn't. Not until he moved away. That was when the first hint of fear crept into him. You don't feel temperature move around you unless something else is sharing the space. The first real evidence came from the family's phones. Strange things began appearing in the background of pictures taken in the hallway or near the kids' rooms. Nothing dramatic, no shadow figures, no faces, just distortions. A slight blur where the wall should be straight. A faint ripple effect that didn't match the rest of the lighting. The mother noticed it first when she snapped a photo of the younger child holding up a drawing. Behind them, the door frame bowed slightly inward, like someone had pressed against it. She took another picture seconds later. Normal, straight lines. But the first image stayed strange. She tried cleaning the lens. She tried recreating it. Nothing worked. Eventually, she deleted it too. You ever notice how people always delete the first real piece of evidence? Not out of denial, but because the moment they see it, they're not ready for what it means. They tell themselves they'll revisit it later. They never do. The entity seemed to favor doors next. Not opening or slamming yet, just subtle movements. The bathroom door, for example, trembled lightly during certain hours. The mother brushed it off as air pressure until she realized the windows were closed and the AC wasn't running. The tremble would stop instantly if she touched the doorknob, like a held breath finally exhaled. The father noticed the front door do something similar. Late at night, after everyone else was asleep, he would sit in the living room scrolling on his phone. The house would grow quiet, too quiet, and always, without fail, he'd see the shadow of the front door's deadbolt shift just slightly on the wall. Not enough to turn, just enough to suggest someone was testing it from the other side. The family started whispering more, whispered conversations in the kitchen about sounds they didn't want the kids to hear, whispered mentions of shadows that didn't feel like shadows, whispered questions like, "Did you move that?" or "Were you awake last night?" or "Did you pass by the hall earlier?" Whispers show the moment fear becomes real, when you don't want walls to hear what you're saying. Night routines changed first. Lights stayed on longer. Bathroom visits required another person waiting in the hall. The kids slept with their doors open so the parents could hear them. The mother lay awake listening for taps on the wall, but heard only silence, the kind that feels too deliberate. Then the repetition started to sharpen. Same tap, same location, same time. 2:13 for the older child, just after midnight for the younger. The mother's taps always came within minutes of her walking the hallway. The father's cold pocket appeared at the same section of floorboards. Patterns aren't coincidences. They're communication, even when no words are spoken. The entity began watching rather than reacting. The family felt it in the corners of their vision, in the pauses between footsteps, in the subtle pressure shifts when they entered a room. The kids sensed it strongest, as kids often do. They said the house felt awake, not alive, awake, like someone had just whispered their names but stopped when they turned. Objects started drifting from place to place, never thrown, never violently, just relocated. A book on the kitchen counter moved an inch closer to the edge. A cup on the table rotated slightly. A shoe near the door turned to face outward instead of inward. All small things, all carefully done, as if the entity was testing how much it could manipulate without being confronted. One morning, during breakfast, the older child pointed to the hallway and asked why the tall shadow was standing near the bathroom. The mother snapped her head to look. Nothing, just the dim stretch of the corridor. But the child insisted it had been there seconds earlier, long enough to see its shape, but not long enough to understand it. Later that day, the mother stood in the same spot and stared down the hall, trying to imagine what the child saw. The longer she stood there, the more she felt the air shift, slow, like a living thing settling into place. That's when she realized something important. The house wasn't just active, it was attentive, and it had begun paying attention to them individually, learning who walked where, who slept lightly, who woke at odd hours, who looked at which shadows and for how long. Entities with curiosity are always the most dangerous. They escalate, they imitate, they wait. And the house had only just started watching. The third phase of the haunting didn't begin with a loud moment. It began with an understanding. The family didn't talk about it openly at first, but each of them had privately crossed the line from confusion into fear. They weren't wondering if something was happening anymore. They were wondering how much worse it could get. The entity must have sensed that shift, because this is where it began responding to the family directly. Not violently, not randomly, just intentionally enough that every movement, every noise felt like an answer. You can always tell when a presence becomes aware that you're aware. It stops acting like part of the environment and starts acting like a participant. The first communication attempt came through tapping, not the simple wall taps from before. These were rhythmic, spaced, precise. The older child described it first. They said the tapping behind their wall no longer happened once, but twice, then paused, then twice again. A pattern. Not Morse code, not language, but structure. Like it was trying to match the child's breathing or heartbeat. They said it felt like someone was behind the wall listening to them sleep. The mother tried something she didn't tell her husband about. She tapped back, softly. 2 taps, matching the pattern her child reported. Nothing happened immediately, but that night she heard tapping from the far end of the hallway, deeper in tone, slower in pace, as if the entity was acknowledging her, shifting its attention toward the sound she'd made. She didn't repeat the experiment. The father had his own encounter, one he initially kept to himself. Late one evening, he stood in the kitchen with the lights off, drinking water in the dark, trying to ease the tension in his shoulders. He heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, steady, approaching the kitchen. The kind of steps that have weight to them, not the soft patter of a child. He thought it was his wife at first, but when he stepped toward the doorway, ready to meet her, the silhouette wasn't hers. It was too tall, too narrow in the shoulders. It stopped moving the moment he looked at it. He flipped the kitchen light on. The hallway was empty, but the floorboards continued settling for several seconds, like someone had just stepped off them. He didn't mention this until much later, once the entity became impossible to ignore. It's common for people to hide early experiences. Fear makes us protective of our own disbelief. The entity began influencing the lights next. Not flickering like faulty wiring, controlled dimming, steady shifts in brightness. The bathroom light would lower from bright to dull in the span of a few seconds whenever someone stood in the doorway. The hallway lamp would brighten when someone entered the corridor and dim when they left. The father tested every bulb, every switch, every breaker. Everything worked perfectly when he wasn't watching for it. You ever walk into a room and feel the light adjusting before your eyes register it? That soft fade that makes your heartbeat lag behind. The family felt that constantly. Night after night, the routines slipped out of their control. The older child found their closet door open each morning, even though it had been closed tightly before bed. The younger child began waking with their blankets folded down neatly at the bottom of the bed, as if someone had peeled them off with care. The mother found the hallway rug turned slightly askew each morning. Not a full rotation, just a few inches off, as though something had walked across it and nudged it with the side of its foot. These changes weren't threatening. They were conversational. That's what made them worse. Entities that want fear will try to startle. Entities that want presence will try to interact. Entities that want attention will mimic behavior. The mimicry started on the 10th night. The mother heard footsteps at the far end of the hall while she was in the bathroom. Heavy footsteps, measured. She assumed it was her husband. She called his name softly. No answer. She stepped out and looked down the hall. No one there. When she found him in the bedroom moments later, he was half asleep, looking confused when she mentioned the noise. The next morning, the older child asked why she'd been walking in the hall at night. She said she hadn't. They insisted they heard her footsteps. Same pace as hers, same weight. The mother's stomach tightened when she realized the entity wasn't only tapping back. It was learning their footsteps, copying them. You ever realize something in your home has started taking notes on how you move? It's not loud, it's not violent. But the recognition of that intent is worse than any scream. Parallel evidence began appearing in strange places. The mother found a notebook she used for grocery lists sitting open on the kitchen counter, turned to a page filled with scribbles. Not words, not drawings, just lines covering almost the entire sheet, pressed deeply into the paper as if someone dragged the pen again and again without lifting it. The children denied touching it. The father thought one of them had played with it. But the mother knew the lines weren't random. They had a strange rhythm, heavy pressure in some areas, lighter in others, almost like someone was trying to trace a shape but didn't know how to hold the pen. The father's phone began recording on its own, small audio clips he didn't activate. When he played them back, most were silent. But a few had a faint, low pulse in the background, as if the microphone had captured air moving in a slow, deliberate wave. He deleted the recordings, telling himself the phone was glitching. But he stopped leaving it on the kitchen table at night. The entity grew bolder in reflecting emotion. When the children cried, taps intensified behind the walls. When the parents argued in hushed tones, the hallway light flickered once, bright enough to make both of them turn and stare at it. When the mother tried to meditate in the bedroom to calm her nerves, the temperature dropped several degrees around her body, a cold that felt targeted, not environmental. One night, after a particularly tense evening, the father decided he was done being afraid of shadows and noises. He stood in the hallway, hands at his sides, staring at the far end where the light faded into darker tones. He spoke quietly, not shouting, not demanding, just asking what the entity wanted, asking what it meant by the tapping and the rearranging and the dark shapes. The hall answered with silence, long silence, the kind that feels drawn out, like something is pausing not because it's gone, but because it's deciding whether to respond. Then the floorboard directly beneath his left foot creaked, not under pressure, under release, as though someone had stepped off it. The father stepped back. The air thickened. He felt movement on his right, a slow shift of weight, like someone invisible had turned to face him. He left the hallway without another word. Communication attempts became daily after that. The entity tapped whenever the mother sat quietly near a wall. It flickered lights when the older child passed the bathroom. It shifted air around the father when he tried to ignore the activity. It moved objects whenever the younger child became upset. It wasn't trying to scare them, it was trying to be part of them, maybe even part of the family's rhythm itself. This is where escalation usually happens. Not through violent encounters, but through interaction. When an entity learns your patterns, it begins weaving itself into them. It wants recognition, response, participation, and once a presence starts participating, it rarely stays subtle. The house was no longer settling, it was speaking, and the family had begun listening whether they wanted to or not. The shift into full manifestation started quietly, as most dangerous escalations do. The house didn't explode with activity. It didn't roar. It didn't slam every door at once or throw furniture. It just adjusted, like something inside had finally finished observing and was ready to step forward. Things changed first in the nature of the silence. The mother described it as a living quiet, not absence of sound, but pressure. She said the house began holding its breath. Every night the quiet deepened until she could feel it in her teeth, a vibration she couldn't hear but sensed in her bones. You ever sit alone in a room and realize the air feels thicker than it should? That was the beginning. The older child was the first to see something. Not a clear figure, not a detailed face, just height, too much of it. They said they woke up at their usual time, 2:13, and felt the familiar tap against the wall. But instead of freezing in place or calling for their mother, they sat up slowly and turned their head. Something stood in the doorway, not towering, not hunched, just tall, tall enough that its head brushed the upper shadow of the frame. The child said the figure didn't move, didn't step in or out. It just watched, or something like watching. They couldn't see eyes. They couldn't even see a face, just the shape of a head angled slightly downward. The mother ran in seconds later after hearing the child whisper her name. But by then, the doorway was empty. She turned the light on. Nothing. No shadows. No figure. No sound. The child trembled, but insisted something had been there. She believed them, because she'd started seeing shadows linger in corners longer than they should. Just a heartbeat longer, enough to suggest presence. The father experienced the next escalation. He woke one night to the bed dipping slightly on his side. Not heavily, just enough to make his body shift. He assumed the mother had gotten back into bed. He reached out and felt nothing but cold sheets. When he sat up, the bed returned to its normal shape, the dip rising as though pressure had lifted. He turned on the lamp. Empty room. But the air held that strange warmth of something that had recently been still and close. Light became the next communication channel. The hallway lamp began dimming whenever the entity drew near. The mother noticed that whenever she stepped close to the darker end of the corridor, the shadows didn't behave normally. They didn't pool outward or cast clean lines. They folded inward, like something was standing behind them, absorbing the glow instead of blocking it. The father tried filming this. He set up his phone on a tripod facing the hallway overnight. The next morning, the phone was on the floor, angled toward the wall. The battery had drained completely. When he charged it and checked the footage, the video cut off after only 3 minutes. The moment before it ended, the screen distorted, thin wave-like ripples forming across the frame. And then it went black. He deleted the file, not because he was scared, but because seeing the distortion felt like a confirmation he wasn't ready to acknowledge. The younger child began talking to someone who wasn't there. Not often, only at certain hours. The mother would find them sitting upright in bed, looking at a corner of the room, nodding every so often. When she asked who they were talking to, the child said, "The hallway friend." She asked what the friend looked like. The child said, "I don't know. He won't come in the light." The hallway moments intensified. That narrow stretch of flooring had become the entity's spine, the place it gathered itself, the place it revealed the most. The mother said that walking through it at night felt like passing through someone else's personal space, an intrusion so intimate it made her chest tighten. One night, she dropped a laundry basket near the children's rooms. Clothes scattered across the floor. As she knelt to pick them up, she heard breathing above her. Not around her, above her, as if someone were leaning over her shoulder, exhaling slowly. She stood up fast. The breathing stopped. But when she stepped back, the hallway light flickered twice, a slow, controlled dimming that felt like acknowledgement. The climax didn't arrive in one moment. It arrived in a sequence of nights. The entity began layering its behavior, stacking manifestations on top of each other, building pressure. Night 1. Taps in the walls increased. Steady triple taps following family members as they moved through the house. No matter who walked the hallway, the taps matched their pace. Night 2. The children's room doors opened by themselves, slowly, at the exact same time, 3:17 a.m. The parents found both doors wide open, the children asleep but restless. The mother closed the doors and returned to bed. Minutes later, both doors opened again, the hinges giving a soft sigh as they swung outward. Night 3. The hallway temperature plummeted. The father walked through it and saw his own breath hang in the air. Not a puff, a slow release. He stood absolutely still as cold surrounded him in a narrow pocket, like the temperature drop formed a perfect oval around his body. When he stepped backward, warmth returned instantly. Night 4. Something touched the mother's hair while she slept. She woke with a start, heart pounding, convinced fingers had brushed her forehead. When she sat up, the bedroom door creaked open half an inch. Night 5. All the taps in the house stopped. Complete silence. And that worried the parents more than the activity. Activity means presence. Silence means intent. The full manifestation happened the next night. The father woke to the sound of the younger child screaming, not loud but terrified, a choked, sharp cry. The parents ran to the room together. The child was sitting upright, pointing to the closet door, which was half open. Not swinging, not moving, just ajar, revealing darkness deeper than the room around it. The older child stood in the hallway, crying, saying there was someone standing beside the closet, someone taller than Dad, someone without a face. The father snapped the closet light on. Nothing inside. Clothes still, toys untouched. But the smell in the closet had changed. It wasn't rot, wasn't mildew, just old air. Air that hadn't moved in too long, like something had stood inside for hours without breathing. That same night, footsteps traveled the hallway, not shuffling, not dragging, walking, each step measured, heavy enough to shake dust from the ceiling. They moved from one end of the hall to the other and back again, over and over, for nearly half an hour. The family gathered in the living room, too frightened to separate. The house vibrated subtly with each footfall, as if accommodating someone heavy moving through it. The parents held the kids close and listened, waiting for the steps to stop. When they finally did, the silence felt dangerous. The final straw came moments later. A tall shadow passed by the living room doorway. Slow, deliberate, not cast by anything inside. It stretched across the floor, elongated by a source of light that didn't exist. The father grabbed his phone, but the screen didn't turn on. The mother couldn't breathe for several seconds. The children buried their faces into their parents' shoulders. The shadow paused in the doorway, not entering, not leaving, just standing there, watching, listening, deciding. Then it leaned forward, only an inch, but enough for the shape to distort, like it was acknowledging the family's fear, feeding on it. When the father reached for a lamp to turn on more light, one single tap sounded on the hardwood floor beside the shadow, a tap that echoed through the room like a warning. He froze. The shadow receded, pulled backward, dissolving into the hallway. The air warmed, the light steadied, and the presence did not leave. It simply stepped back, waiting for its next opportunity. This was no longer observation, no longer communication, no longer testing. This was claim, and the house had made its intention clear. The aftermath didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a slow collapse. The family didn't pack their bags that night or rush to the car or call for help, not because they weren't afraid, but because people rarely flee from their home the instant the haunting peaks. Humans cling to routine even while the world around them fractures. The mind tries to repair the shape of normalcy long after normalcy is gone. The house took advantage of that. The morning after the shadow appeared, the family moved through the home with the caution of people trying not to disturb something sleeping. The mother made breakfast quietly. The father walked the hall, avoiding the spots where the footsteps had been heaviest. The children stayed close, refusing to enter their rooms without holding a parent's hand. Nothing happened during daylight. Nothing moved. Nothing tapped. The house stayed impossibly still, as if the prior night had drained something from it, or as if the entity was letting them feel the difference between activity and intention. You ever wake after a nightmare and feel the day pretending to be normal around you? That's what their morning felt like. A performance of peace. But fear has a way of stretching into the hours between events. The mother kept glancing at the hallway every few minutes, checking the light, checking the shadows, checking that nothing leaned forward the way the figure had the night before. The father tried to fix the kitchen sink even though nothing was broken. He needed his hands to stay busy. The children refused to play in their rooms. They gathered their toys and sat in the living room, quietly arranging them in small groups like they didn't want the pieces too far apart. The younger one asked if the hallway friend slept during the day. The mother told them yes. She didn't know why she said that. Maybe because she needed to believe it too. That afternoon, the family discussed leaving for the first time. Not permanently, just for a night, a hotel, a relative's place, anywhere else. But fear twists logic. Fear convinces people that fleeing might be disrespectful to whatever shares the space. The mother said she felt the entity watching decisions form in their minds, like if they said aloud that they were leaving, the house would react. The father disagreed, but he didn't push it. Not then. They decided to stay one more night so the kids could sleep in their own beds, but they all slept in the living room together. The couch, the floor, blankets spread out. The kind of makeshift camp families make during storms. Only this storm was inside the walls. The first night of aftermath was quiet. Too quiet. The entity wasn't gone. Its absence had weight. The silence pressed down with a thickness that made every breath feel shallow. The father described it later as the air feeling hovered, like something weighted just above their heads. Sometime after midnight, the lights dimmed for a second. Just one subtle dip, enough to feel like blinking without blinking. The mother sat up immediately, staring toward the hallway. Nothing moved, nothing stepped out. But she heard one soft knock on the wall, low and calm, like a reminder that the entity hadn't left, only changed its pacing. The next morning, the children's bedrooms looked slightly altered. A chair moved 2 inches, a blanket folded differently, a small pyramid of toys arranged in the corner. They hadn't been in their rooms, but something had. Something that didn't disturb anything violently, but left unmistakable fingerprints in the arrangement of the small things. The father placed his phone in one of the rooms and let it record audio. When he checked it later, the file wasn't empty, and it wasn't normal. It captured hours of regular silence until around 2 a.m. A faint sound began, slow breathing, long inhales, longer exhales. The tempo matched no one in the house. The breathing grew louder for a moment, then softer, then disappeared entirely. But the silence after was deeper, almost vacuum-like, before the recording ended with a soft tap. He deleted the file, but he saved a copy on his desktop. He didn't tell his wife he had it. The mother started noticing aggression in the air. Not violent aggression, but tension. Like the house was irritated by the family's hesitation to act. Things became misaligned more aggressively. Shoes pushed farther from the door, chairs angled in sharper ways, drawers left slightly more open than before. These weren't small rearrangements anymore. They were deliberate changes, as though the entity was trying to reshape the house into something it understood better than the humans living there. The children grew anxious. The younger one stopped speaking in full sentences and began pointing instead. The older child refused to be in any room alone. They followed the mother closely, clutching her shirt with small, tight fingers. They jumped at every little sound, even when the sound came from the parents themselves. The father finally reached his limit. On the fourth night, the house made the familiar triple tap on the hallway wall as he passed. Something broke in him. He turned sharply and said, "Stop." Not shouted, not demanded, just a firm, quiet word. A statement that carried exhaustion more than anger. The tapping stopped. The hallway light flickered once. Then the floorboard at the far end of the corridor sank as though under someone's weight. He stepped backward into the bedroom and closed the door. He didn't sleep that night. The mother grew aware of patterns the entity repeated. She kept a journal. She didn't write interpretations, just observations. Tap when walking the hall. Cold pocket at 11:48 p.m. Breathing sound in child's room at 2:13. Lights dimmed when folding laundry. Shadow movement at corners during sunset. Doors creak between 3 and 3:10. Smell of still air after shadow sighting. Patterns show intention. Intention shows intelligence. Intelligence without humanity is the most dangerous combination. The fifth night brought the strongest escalation of aftermath. The mother heard whispering outside the bedroom door. She described it not as voices but as breath-forming shapes, like someone trying to speak through a throat that didn't understand speech. She pressed her ear to the door. The whispering stopped. Something touched the doorknob, lightly, testing the metal. The knob didn't turn, but it clicked. Later that same night, the older child woke with blood on their nose. A small trickle down the upper lip dried before they even sat up. The mother panicked, assuming illness, but the child said something touched their face while they slept. Something with weight, like a hand resting gently. They didn't remember anything else. The father decided they were leaving the next day. No more discussion, no more waiting. He said it quietly, but the walls seemed to hear it, because that night the house responded with its first act of unmistakable hostility. The hallway grew hot, not warm, hot, like standing near an oven with the door open. The heat pulsed, 3 waves, then stopped. The family froze in place, unsure whether to move or stay still. A low vibration moved through the floorboards, not shaking, but humming. The children cried. The mother grabbed them. The father watched the hallway, waiting for the shadow to return. Nothing appeared, nothing touched them, nothing tapped, nothing whispered. But the house was no longer passive. It was warning them. The next morning they packed bags, not carefully, not neatly, just enough to leave fast. The father loaded the car. The mother gathered essentials. The children waited near the door. But when the father tried opening the front door, the deadbolt wouldn't budge. The metal felt warm, too warm. He pushed harder. It opened on the third attempt, swinging outward with a reluctant groan. They drove away without looking back. You might think the moment they left was the end of it. It wasn't. Paranormal events don't stop at the threshold. Not always. Sometimes they follow. Sometimes they linger in belongings. Sometimes the absence of a family only gives the entity room to grow in the silence. For 3 nights at their relative's home, nothing happened. No taps, no footsteps, no shadows. The children slept deeply. The parents cried quietly. Peace felt foreign, but welcome. On the 4th night, the mother woke at 2:13. She wasn't sure what woke her. Not noise, not movement, just a feeling. She turned her head toward the bedroom door. It was open. They had closed it before bed. In the crack between the door and the frame, she saw something move, slowly. A shadow, long, angled, leaning. She blinked. It was gone. The room was empty, but the temperature near the doorway dipped just enough to tighten her chest. She didn't wake her husband. She didn't check the hall. She pulled the blanket over her shoulders and waited for morning. The next day, they returned to the old house with a truck and helped to gather the rest of their belongings. When the mother walked down the hallway one last time, she saw something impossible to rationalize. On the wall beside the older child's bedroom door were small scratches, not deep, but unmistakable, parallel lines, 4 of them, at a height just above her eye level. She touched them lightly. The wall felt warm. She didn't tell the movers. She didn't tell the children. She didn't tell her husband until much later. They left the house behind. But hauntings don't always stay anchored to wood and drywall. Some follow the ones who notice them. Some follow the ones who acknowledge them. Some follow the ones who listened. This family listened. And the entity had not finished speaking. The final part of any case like this is never simple. People think a haunting ends when the family escapes the house, when the front door closes behind them and they drive away. But hauntings don't end. They shift, they linger, they imprint. They wait for silence to settle, for routines to rebuild, for attention to drift. Then they press against the edges of memory, reminding you that some things don't release their hold just because you changed your address. That's what happened with this family. Leaving the house didn't end the entity's presence. It only changed its proximity. For the first few days in their relative's home, the quiet felt unnatural, not peaceful, suspicious. The parents stayed awake longer than they needed to, listening for small taps or creaks, expecting the same rhythms to follow them. But the quiet held. No breathing in the walls, no footsteps in the hallway, no shifting shadows, just normal silence, human silence. You ever go from a place that feels alive in all the wrong ways to one that feels untouched, and you realize how loud your fear has become? That's where they were living, inside the architecture of their own anxiety, waiting for something to follow them into the dark. On the 4th night, when the mother woke at 2:13, she knew the quiet wasn't permanent. That's the hour the older child had been waking every night back in the house. 2:13 was the entity's calling card. She felt it before she saw anything. A familiar pressure behind her eyes. The faint sense of being observed. She kept still, hoping it was just her nerves settling. Then she saw the bedroom door shift an inch, and the shadow between the hinges stirred like something had leaned in. Nothing entered, nothing touched her. But the old rhythm, the one tapped behind her child's wall night after night, had followed her here in the way the door eased open. She lay awake until dawn, unwilling to breathe too loudly. The next morning, she didn't tell her husband. Some experiences stay trapped behind the eyes of the person who feels them first. People protect their fear by carrying it alone. She just watched her family that day more closely than usual. She noticed the older child rubbing their forehead, the younger one holding a toy too tightly, the father checking the shadows of the guest room walls when he thought no one was looking. They went back to the old house that afternoon to collect the rest of their belongings, and the entity seemed to sense their return. The hall felt warmer than it should. The rooms felt stretched and hollow. The closet doors breathed subtly on their hinges. The smell, faint, stale, unnatural, hung in air currents that didn't match the weather outside. The mother didn't mention the scratches she found on the wall. The father didn't mention the heavy feeling in the hallway. The children didn't mention the tapping they heard when they crept past their rooms. Everyone was choosing silence. Fear becomes quiet when people begin losing the energy to explain what they're feeling. For the first few weeks in their new home, the family rebuilt routines the way survivors rebuild muscle after an injury. Slowly, cautiously, unsure of their strength. The father checked every closet. The mother tested every light. The children left their bedroom doors cracked open at night. Nothing happened. Not at first, but there's a kind of haunting that doesn't live in walls. It lives in memory. It lives in the moments when your thoughts go quiet and something else fills the silence. It doesn't need a structure to feed on. It needs ritual, attention, fear. The older child said they sometimes felt someone standing beside their bed when they woke to shift positions, not touching, not moving, just standing, watching them breathe. They didn't tell their mother. They didn't want her to worry. They tried to fall back asleep quickly, hoping the presence would dissolve with consciousness. The younger child began placing toys in small, protective circles around their pillows, a fortress of plastic animals and stuffed figures. They said the hallway friend couldn't step inside the circle. When asked why, they said, because he doesn't know how to play. The father, who had fought so hard against the idea of a haunting in the beginning, started checking the hallway at night. He didn't hear footsteps. He didn't see shadows stretching the wrong way. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something familiar waited just beyond his vision. He described it as a sense of weight. Not the weight of a person, the weight of attention. That's the difference most people never notice. Attention has gravity. One night, while sitting alone in the kitchen after everyone else had gone to bed, he heard the faintest sound behind him. A sigh, soft, almost apologetic. He turned quickly. Nothing. The house stayed still, but he didn't dismiss the sound. Not this time. He just stared at the hallway, breathing slowly, waiting to see if anything moved. Some things don't need to show themselves twice to be remembered. The mother's moments didn't come with sound. They came with impressions. She'd be folding laundry or washing dishes or reading near the bedroom lamp, and she'd feel something pass through the doorway behind her. Nothing visible, nothing tangible, just a shift in the air, as if a tall figure had leaned in slightly before deciding not to enter. She didn't acknowledge it. She didn't speak to it. She didn't call it out. She knew better. Entities feed on attention as much as fear. The more you address them, the more they root themselves in your awareness. Still, some nights she'd wake and feel the old rhythm press against her, like a presence she didn't bring with her had found its way through memory instead of walls. She would lie still, holding her breath until her heartbeat calmed, waiting for the feeling to pass. Hauntings don't vanish. They thin. They step into the background of a life, waiting for cracks, waiting for quiet, waiting for moments when the air cools or the lights dim or the world goes still enough for the old rhythm to rise up again. The family moved on, but their fear never fully left. It softened, it settled, but it didn't disappear. And that's the part people always underestimate. The aftermath becomes part of you. The places you've escaped stay inside long after you've closed the door behind them. And the entity? The mother told me the last thing she ever felt of it. Months after they moved, she was tucking the younger child into bed. She leaned forward to kiss their forehead, smoothing their hair aside. When she turned to leave the room, she felt a small, soft tap on the wall behind her. Not loud, not threatening. The kind of tap that had started everything. She didn't look back. She didn't speak. She walked out of the room, turned off the light, and closed the door. When she reached her own bedroom that night, she finally said the thing she had been carrying since the day they left the house. Some things don't stay behind. They stay with you. And that was where the message ended. Well, Fright Night Vault listeners, this is the end of this story. If you have a horror story of your own, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. You never know, the next story could be yours. Subscribe to the Vault and never walk alone again.